Throughout our time in Honkai Star Rail's universe, we have learnt very little about the followers of Remembrance. Sure, they appear from time to time, but often they are faceless and nameless. They spend most of their time finding and recording memories for their Eon Fu Li, and their task is a never-ending one, so long as the universe continues to exist. Because the group they belong to are secretive in nature, not much is known about the lives of these memory collectors. Do they have goals and dreams, or are they just subservient to the will of the remembrance? Well, in this video, we are going to dive into Black Swan's past and see whether the memo keepers are just mindless tools of the remembrance, or is there something more to them? Before we do that though, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Now this video will mostly focus on Black Swan's past, but there will be some spoilery stuff I might touch on seeing as how we first meet her in Penacony. So if you haven't gone through the main story or her companion quest, probably go and get those done first. Black Swan's life started without much fanfare. She wasn't a chosen one or destined to be someone great, at least not yet, but her mother loved her regardless. From a very young age, Black Swan had an interest in history and would often question the origins of herself and her family, and even contemplated their place in the universe, as well as the roles of the gods and the eons. She would often ask questions about existential topics that even the most learned of people on her home planet could not answer. Her interest in such topics would often lead her to be picked on, but her interest outweighed the insults kids would throw at her. Unfortunately though, her mother was afflicted with amnesia and would often struggle with retaining her memories. Black Swan would stay with her mother all the way until the end of her life and experience firsthand what the effects of a fragmented memory would do to a person. When her mother died, she even thought to herself what would happen to the memories she had of her mother if she herself became afflicted with such a condition. Would the memories all disappear? Would everything she had just gone through be rendered meaningless? These questions likely flooded her mind and built within her some understanding of the importance that memories hold even for the average person. Before dying though, her mother did leave her with one last piece of advice. Life is akin to a winding labyrinth, where memories serve as our sole companion. This experience is what formed her initial appreciation, or perhaps obsession, depending on how you see it, with memories and their importance in life and existence. Fast forward a couple of years, through some strange twist of fate, Black Swan would have a run-in with a representative of the Garden of Recollection. One of the main tasks given to a memo keeper is to act as an archivist for the universe. Sure, they would often collect important memories from significant people or events, but outside of those specific scenarios, they had day-to-day tasks as well. Memories are ingrained not just in sentient creatures, but everything they touch, from the buildings they build to the books that they write, and even in every footstep they take on a branching path. Because of this, memo keepers would often travel from planet to planet and carry out their task of observing the people, the nature, and even the buildings found there in a slow but painstaking effort in recording and extracting everything related to that planet. Often, they would do this in complete secrecy, as the memo keepers are blessed by Fu Li itself and granted an incorporeal form. They were functionally mimetic entities that could exist without others noticing their presence. Perhaps because of destiny, a memo keeper would arrive at Black Swan's planet to carry out its duties. Across their time there, the memo keeper would observe and record the planet and would often notice a young girl. The girl would observe the most innocuous thing, from rain trickling into sewers to stones laden on the ground, and often with a curious and determined gaze. While the girl didn't know it at the time, she was naturally drawn to objects or things that retained significant memories, each object having had a lifetime of stories to tell. This made the memo keeper curious. After observing this happen over and over, the memo keeper chose to appear to the girl and began exploring her interest in the memories hidden behind everyday objects. Eventually though, the memo keeper realized the girl had all the right attributes and temperament to become a memo keeper and offered her the choice. And so it began her initiation. While you might think that there's some crazy ritual and remembrance magic that takes place during such an initiation, there was really only 3 things that needed to be asked. Are you willing to dedicate your life to collecting memories? Are you prepared to relinquish your physical form and accept the transformation? And finally, if one day you cease to exist, what legacy will you leave behind for the world? To that last question, Black Swan responded, "My memories." They are seeds from the past and will be reborn in the future. Now this hints at something really interesting, but I'll get back to this a bit later in the video. So what does this little backstory tell us? Essentially, it's sort of implied that Black Swan has the acumen and is maybe even drawn to the life of a memokeeper. She's basically a natural. Everything about her, from her upbringing and life experiences to her outlook on life itself, has molded her into the ideal memokeeper. This means that while we might be suspicious of her in Penacony, Black Swan's motivations are purely related to preserving the memories of all things, something ingrained within her when she was still functionally just a human. In her character story, she even speaks about why she is so intent in capturing the memories of Penacony. Because of the mysterious circumstances of the planet, given its exceptionally high memoria concentration, the dreamscape, and potentially even the Stellaron, few memokeepers have succeeded in completely recording the planet's memories. Black Swan wishes to succeed where these other memokeepers have failed. She also mentions that before the memo snatchers and the cremators arrive there, she must succeed first in order to have the most unblemished account of Penacony's memories. So from this, we can kind of see that while she will work with just about anyone, whether it be Aventurine or Himeko, what Black Swan wants is clear. She just wants to collect and archive the memories of Penacony. This makes her a little less suspicious, as through her backstory, we now know what drives and motivates her. Now, perhaps she has gone rogue here and wants to do something in Penacony that is unexpected, but too much about her past and how she operates would need to change for that to actually happen. While she did seem to betray us by working with Aventurine, her goals are still straightforward, and likely, she isn't an outright villain as long as she can get the purest version of Penacony's memory. On top of that, I have a feeling that she is aware of the role the main character has in revealing Penacony's secrets, and why she's put her faith in them somewhat. Now remember I mentioned earlier that when she responded to the memokeeper's third question, it hinted at something interesting? Well, it's related to the main character and an idea I've had for some time. Fair warning though, from this point onwards, it's mostly a theory, a really insane one. For a while now, there are hints that the universe that Star Rail inhabits exists within a continuous loop. The universe eventually ends and begins again for everything to move in the same way, functionally being in a cycle. In the simulated universe, it was hinted that the reason why the Eon of Remembrance is collecting and recording everything is because it acts like a repository of information for this universe, which it then brings over to the next universe. So what I'm saying is that the story we are currently experiencing has likely already happened. I mean, just look at her response when asked about what legacy she would leave behind. She mentions her memories as they are the seeds of the past and will be reborn in the future. A sentiment which seems to be in line with what Fuli is speculated to be doing. On top of that, there has been several occasions where the main character has also been hinted to have the ability to change the story, to break the cycle as it were. I go into this in a lot more detail in another video, but essentially everything that's happened so far might indicate that the main character can forcibly change the script of the story, and Black Swan is aware of this. Black Swan's goal is to collect and record the most unblemished version of the story in Penacony, and it's very likely she is using the main character to enable this. In her light cone, she mentions that when all characters are in place, only then can she see the unfathomable truth. However, she notices a card missing and thus adds one, in which I think refers to the involvement of the Trailblazer. I think that perhaps in the many iterations of the past universes, the truth of Penacony has never been fully revealed. But this time, the Memo Keepers have a catalyst, the main character, who again seems to have the ability to go beyond the script. Maybe in this iteration of the universe, because the main character is present, the true memories of Penacony will be revealed. This is why I think Black Swan is likely aware of the main character's unique abilities and is likely using them to her own ends. This also seems to match up with Acheron's whole speech about what if you knew the future and would you still do it if you knew it. All of this though is just a convoluted theory I have and might not turn out to be true, but I still thought it was interesting enough to share here. Even if it doesn't become true, Black Swan's objectives and motivations are made pretty clear by understanding her past. It's unlikely she will do anything extreme as she needs Penacony to survive long enough for her to collect its memories. And given we roughly know what motivates her, how she might act would be slightly easier to predict. What ends up happening in the story though is anyone's guess. Do you think that Black Swan is less suspicious now that we know her backstory, or is she still a wild card? Let me know in the comments. If you found this video entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.